JRPGs are an odd and seemingly elusive mistress when it comes to game reviewers. Well, we love games with a good story, we love games that have a depth of graphical detail, nuances that give the game a life and a sense of a wider world, and of course epic battles that can span the course of multiple phases, multiple arenas and against multiple foes that command the power to destroy the world itself, but will stop at nothing to monologue about their nefarious schemes for hours, if not days at a time. But the trouble is, they take so damn long to play that reviewing them becomes a tricky prospect. How can one adequately describe everything a game has to offer when you've only seen a fraction of its content? And with JRPGs, completing them can take dozens of hours if you're lucky, given how long it takes to level up your characters, unravel the most convoluted of stories, and indeed make it to the end of the villain's monologue. So the trick is to chip away at them, slowly, over days if not weeks, to really get the full flavour of the game. And in the case of Ara Fell, that's exactly what I did. Originally released in 2016 and then ported to the Xbox One on the 26th of March 2020 and available now for £11.39, Ara Fell is a JRPG I've been whittling away at until I managed to complete it. I mean, sure, it took me 3 months, but who's counting? And I'm pleased to report it wasn't for naught. We have on our hands a JRPG that seems to meet all the criteria for a great game. Classic pixel graphics, larger-than-life story, massive set pieces, colossal collisions of characters in a world thick with combat, exploration and intrigue. Oh, and did I mention there's magic and vampires that aren't sparkling D-bags? But the question is, does the game soar towards a score that would make Tears of the Kingdom jealous? Or does Ara Fell fall flat on its face? Let's find out. This is my review of 2020's Ara Fell, the Enhanced Edition. The game synopsis reads, take in the beauty of a magical world floating above the clouds, then take on a menacing race of vampires hidden in the dark. Ara Fell combines the best parts of Japanese-style role-playing games with the best parts of Western RPGs. The new Enhanced Edition features a slew of new features. Long, long ago, the elven sorcerers cast a spell to save the floating world of Ara Fell from destruction. Instead, they doomed it to fall from the sky. By chance, the fate of the world has been placed in the hands of a young woman. Join her as she and her friends endeavour against all odds to save their homeland, all while the clock ticks ever nearer to the final hour. As with all JRPGs, the story is all-consuming and dominates almost everything that occurs in the game. Pivotal moments, big reveals, and of course the coveted power-up. According to the game's Wikipedia page, quote, centuries prior to the start of the game, a great war between the elves and vampires nearly led to the elves' defeat, until they solidified themselves into stone, thus preventing the vampires from feasting upon them, or turning them to vampires as well. The vampires have continued to stagnate since the end of the war, while still coming into conflict with humans, dwarfs, and the other races of Ara Fell. Okay, when we join the fray, the story follows Lita, a spirited and brave young villager with a penchant for adventure and a knack for stumbling into something unexpected. She, along with her companion Adrian, and then companions from other places in the world, discover an artifact that not only beckons Lita to take on the kind of adventure she craves, but unknowingly causes a millennia-old prophecy to unfold involving stone statues, elder elves, and uber-hardcore goth vampires. I like the story of this game. It's quaint at first, ramps up in the first act, builds in the second, and crescendos in the third, in admittedly unexpected and spectacular fashion. And without spoilers, I was pleasantly surprised with how the story ended given where all the signs had pointed prior to the final showdown with the big bad. Lita is a great protagonist, in that the story is designed to highlight how naive she is at times. She's not a perfect person, nor a fully formed hero when we meet her. I mean, she's only 16. She wants to be a hero, but sometimes underestimates what that means, or if she's even capable despite omnipotent forces deigning her to be the hero to defeat a looming force of vampires hell-bent on taking over Ara Fell. But as the story unfolds, her unerring wit, determination, and childlike sense of wonder, combined with her ever-growing skill as a warrior, inspires her companions to follow her into ever-increasing danger as the foes, and indeed the stakes of attaining the Sunstone, grow ever larger. I will concede that the story is hard to follow at times. The war between elves and vampires is alluded to but never really shown, and it loses its own thread at times, only to pick it up when the elven spirit converses with Lita like the Great Gazoo. So if you're the kind of gamer that isn't hungry for story, then this game might bore you with its tangents and exposition at times, so know that going in. The cast of characters is varied, and I think rather good. Well, the main bad guy, Baramon, when you figure out which one he actually is pretty evil. In fact, he's even more eviler than Skeletor, because he wants to use the big glowy thingy thing to do big evil glowy thingy things, as all evil dudes tend to do. Okay, I'm not a fan of the big bads in this game. Frankly, they're nameless vampire sword fodder for the most part. But Lita, as mentioned, is a great character in herself, but her supporting cast is awesome too. Adrian is Lita's long-standing companion and best friend who attempts to be a paragon of good, but has his moments of cowardice. Doran is a mysterious, mystical man with a mysterious past of mystery. Turns out he's an elf, by the way. Big surprise. And Seri is the serious, no-nonsense matriarch who takes no rubbish from nobody. I really enjoyed the character exchanges. These always felt organic and earned, and in many ways classic JRPG in that it can be melodramatic and a bit campy, and doesn't for a second know how to handle romance between two characters, so opts for friendship. But Lita and her comrades feel more and more like a team as the game progresses, not just in how your battle plan is comprised, but also in their banter. Seri never compromises and often antagonises the group. Doran is pragmatic and stoic, Adrian clashes with almost everyone, and Lita can be hot-headed and impatient at times. But these characteristics are great fun to watch play out as the group grows to defend and respect each other, and it was really lovely to see. Moving on to the presentation, the artwork and pixel artistry coupled with the soundtrack really sells the world being presented to you here, which, like the protagonist, is much more upbeat and childlike than other JRPGs, with much more mature themes and presentation. I really love the way the game looks and sounds, exceptional retro sprites, more detailed and epic models used in conversations, a wonderful soundtrack that's light and beautiful at times, and dark with menacing undertones at others. The world is bright and vibrant, colours used to paint wonderful forests, streams, darkened dungeons, and sky-spanning vistas that really do sell the notion of a land suspended in air. And while the very notion of a floating continent might seem somewhat scary, throughout the game, the thought never occurs to you it might fall out of the sky. That's called foreshadowing, kids. But back to the point, the game looks and sounds tremendous, with almost nothing to report in terms of bugs or glitches. The load times were reasonable, and since the game has multiple save slots, there's plenty of room to make your mistakes and explore while revisiting portions of the game that I really didn't mind seeing and replaying over and over again. I will say the battle animations are a bit meh, and very repetitive. I mean, it might seem nitpicky, but when you've seen hundreds of battles over the course of a game, and the animations are just underwhelming as they are, even with the super moves, it becomes monotonous watching them. Playing them is still fun, but you gotta make those attacks shine, man. But okay, that's enough of the bells and whistles. Let's get to the good part, shall we? What's the game like to play? And summed up, it's pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. It has a good pace, battles broken up between periods of exploration, fulfilling quests and exposition dumps, made bearable only due to the characters I mentioned earlier in their banter. The combat is a large portion of what you'll be spending your time on in this game. It's turn-based, with a fuller complement of characters. You'll have up to 4 turns per round to deal damage or activate their abilities, with enemies having attacks or moves smattered through your character's turns to keep combat dynamic and interesting. However, the turn bar at the top of your screen will allow you to employ tactics to isolate weaker enemies before they have the chance to attack, leading to combinations that could potentially render groups of enemies helpless. All 4 characters have their speciality. Lita is a bow-wielding scout, Aiden is a sword-wielding damage sponge, Doran is the group's white mage who heals and deals the occasional holy blast, and Seri is the magic-wielding powerhouse. Each has attacks that can deal massive damage to one foe or moderate damage to all, and each has special abilities that when used in tandem can turn the tide of a battle, using Lita's scout ability to gouge an opponent's health and weaknesses, followed by Aiden's taunt, Doran's group heal, and then Seri's various elemental attacks to target an opponent's elemental weaknesses for damage was a common tactic of mine. The enemies vary from cuddly critters who want to nibble at your ankles to full-blown Sephiroth-level monstrosities of bosses that can spawn their own little minions to distract and debilitate you while dealing massive damage of their own. Never fear, however, because the game has a leveling up system, and while you can defeat foes levels above you with skill, I prefer to grind for a few hours to reach levels that enable me to obliterate my foes, including final bosses. Depending on your character, you'll end up favouring one of the 5 attribute upgrades available: agility, attack, defense, intelligence, and magic, and each will tie into the playstyle you develop while utilising one or all of the 4 characters. There are also stat bars for health, magic, and a super meter that when filled allows you to use one of the 4 super moves available for each character. The battles are indeed fun, tense encounters at first, becoming easier, and then tense again when a sub-boss or full fat boss rocks up, and victory is satisfying, not only to the player, but to the party as well, who do a little flourish when you win. So while it's not revolutionary, it's a solid combat system, which fans of other turn-based JRPGs will feel right at home in. When not battling evil monsters or colourful ferrets and butterflies, you'll be managing your character's loadout and skills, upgrading their gear and unlocking new items to empower them, as well as levelling up new skills and abilities that enable your characters to perform in new ways during battle. This opens the door for a really good opportunity to replay portions of the game in tandem with the XP that you earn, which is a good job, because for an RPG, It's quite linear. Quests are rarely given more than 2 at a time, and each is straightforward so long as you've learned how to navigate the land, which is easy to do. The game has a map and a fast travel system. When you locate teleportation crystals usually found in villages, shops and safe houses that you'll use to stock up on healing potions, crafting materials, as well as explore the towns, chat to NPCs to learn more about the lore and the world. Beyond the main quests, there is grinding to level up by defeating the roaming enemies, but not much else. There are puzzles in the game, such as collectible pictures that are used to open doors, or tile puzzles, matching up puzzles, etc. But nothing the average bear can't handle, so while they're there, they're nothing special. The items you collect are plentiful and often useful, and the game's economy is very fair. Never was there an item that seemed so expensive that it wasn't attainable, and each item held some value even late in the game. As a result, the core mechanics of the game, both in and out of combat, are tight, sharp, fun and sensible, if not lacking a little bit of pizzazz. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the game's open world and exploration elements. The game has a vast and mostly uninterrupted world to explore, with secret passages to crawl into, secret rooms accessible with keys or bombs, ledges and platforms you need to jump to reach, and the occasional blocked path that is either guarded by some script that says you can't go through, or a shielded door that you need an item to unlock. The world is a good size, and sprawling with lots of lovely little details, roaming enemies and secrets to find, side missions to defeat various themed foes, and despite the linear nature of the missions and story, the world is designed in such a way that it really does promote the game's strongest attributes and hides its deficiencies well. And in fact, that's a great way for me to sum up this game. It's not perfect, it's not utterly astounding, but it certainly does what it sets out to do, and does it very well. It tells a fun story with characters you grow to really like. It has a world packed full of battles and opportunities to explore without being so vast as to be overwhelming. It has several difficulty levels enabling all styles of play and skill levels to get involved. And it has a gorgeous presentation and style. If the battles had more moves, or more animations, or perhaps just even improved the existing ones, if the villains were more clearly defined and adversarial, and if the game had a few more things to do outside of combat in terms of in-game quirks or activities, and if it had a few more quests running in tangent with the main quest, then it would be hard to deny that this game is an A+ game. But while it isn't that, even as it is, if you're after a JRPG with a bunch of content and all of the above, then Ara Fell is a great game to pick up, especially if you've never played the Enhanced Edition like I did. And with that, I shall say sayonara for this episode. Thank you very much for watching this edition of The Halcyon Show. I've been your host, Lorne Risley. Please like, share and subscribe. Stay tuned for more reviews and videos in the future. Please help me as we push to 500 subscribers and 3,000 watch hours so I can finally monetize the content on this channel. And as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next episode.